Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 15 of the CStar Presents podcast. My name is Kuma. I'm followed here by my friend Ebenezer. He's going to be engineering and also co-hosting today. With our special guest, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. First off, thank you for having me.
No problem.
I appreciate you reaching out.
Mhm.
For those that don't know me, my name is Kekoa, the Hawaiian Warrior. I am the current MCW Heavyweight Champion, which is Maryland Championship Wrestling. For those that don't know, I've been a professional wrestler for 14 years now,
Mm.
so it's been quite a bit. And thank you again for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. And I kind of want to hop right into that. So I know like a lot of people kind of get into wrestling in different ways. For me, it was my grandfather kind of, that's the only thing he would show me when I was younger. When I was around him, he just talked wrestling. And even to the point where like I was older and I kind of got out of it, like every time I talked to him, he'd be like, you see what happened on, SmackDown or Raw last night? And I kind of had to, bull crap my way through that. But obviously you're way more invested in wrestling than I am. So how did you kind of get your start? And like where did you first kind of find that love and, that interest in wrestling?
I know that I've been watching it since I was a little kid. My mom
Mm.
tells me, I think around the time I was 3, I got put in front of the television, and then that was pretty much it after that. I can't really say like even like what was the first like my earliest memories of things because it's tough to tell like do I actually remember them or is it
Yeah.
because like I have these tapes so that I remember watching them when I was a little kid.
Mm.
But either way, the first like at all memory that I have is the 1993 Royal Rumble, and it just
Mm.
so happens that we're in Royal Rumble season right now. But I remember I must have watched it, too many times as a kid. So
Yeah.
again, I don't know if it's like if it's actually in there because I remember watching it, but I've watched it that many times,
Yeah.
but I've just been a fan, like everybody else since then, uh, and then my mom and my dad thought I was going to grow out of it, and they were wrong. And then others thought I was going to grow out of it, and they were wrong. So here I am, still invested.
That's what's up. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel the same way. Like I know I was younger when I first started watching, and then I kind of like as I got older, like my grandfather passed away, so I have all his like, wrestling stuff. Actually, that whole bin up there is just all wrestling action figures and memorabilia from his house. So yeah, I kind of got into it now. But so when did you kind of know that this was like more than just a interest in a pastime of watching and being a fan, and then becoming into like I want to make this like an actual reality for myself.
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, again, I don't remember what age in particular I was when I had my mind made up. I think I just had it made up from the beginning. I do know at one point, like it kind of tailored off. I thought, all right, maybe I'll focus on basketball. Maybe I'll focus on baseball or this and that. It not that it was ever put on the back burner. It was just a change of direction. Um, so there was other things that kind of came in, but the first time um, that I actually felt a wrestling ring and got in a wrestling ring pretty much made up my mind. So there was a gentleman by the name of Bud Carson who owned a pro wrestling memorabilia store in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Mm.
So he actually had a wrestling ring in the back of his shop. The Wild Simones used to train out of there at the time. And I remember going there, seeing the ring, and I remember just like sliding in the ring. Like he was like, "Yeah, you can get in the ring if you want." So I got in the ring, and I grabbed onto a rope, and I was like, "Yep, this is it."
That's what's
Like
up.
that was it. Like it was really weird. Like it was really weird moment of like, yeah, I don't want to do anything else. Like
How
ever.
old were
Like
you?
at that time, I was a junior in high school.
Mm.
So at that time, like it was official, nothing else ever. Screw basketball, screw all these other sports, screw
Mm.
everything else, wrestling. So again, it was always the goal, it was always the dream. But then at that moment, it was okay. That's enough. Like enough playing around.
And were the people around you more supportive of it? Because I know some people like kind of think it's kind of a weird kind of pastime that people like and enjoy wrestling. As popular as it is, it's weird that there's still a good amount of people that still are kind of questionable about it. So were the people around you supportive of you wanting to kind of transition into being a wrestler more than a fan?
Absolutely not.
That's what's up.
The main problem was I was a scrawny, nerdy kid in high school.
Mm.
So when everyone saw me at, 150 pounds soaking wet, 145 pounds soaking wet, and I didn't know anything about weightlifting or anything like that at the time.
Mhm.
So at that point it was like, you want to wrestle? Like, what are you going to do? And I remember we actually had to do a graduation project our senior year, where we gave a presentation.
Mhm.
We had to write a paper, and we had to do some type of presentation to say like what we wanted to be, in our adult life. And I did it on wrestling. And that was a lot of the questions that I got when the presentation was over was, well, what are you going to do? Like, you're a lot smaller than everybody else. And I'm like, I'll lift weights. Like, that's what everybody else does.
Yeah.
I'll get bigger.
Mhm.
And then, I think it was just more or less, I always say people's own self-doubt, or certain people's, regret that they didn't chase what they wanted to do. So then when they see somebody say like, no, this is what I want to do, and I'm just going to go do it, then it's a lot harder for them to resonate in their brain of like, he's going to do whatever it takes to get there, or to do what he wants to do. Whereas, other people, again, like, they maybe backed off on their own career choices or their dreams. So I wasn't disconcerted or discontent with people doubting me, or thinking that I was wasting my life or anything like that, because I was like, this is what I'm doing. Like, you can go do your thing. This is what I'm doing. I just want to let you know.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that's awesome because like a lot of people definitely aren't that confident in their traditional career path. So knowing that you were that headstrong about becoming a pro wrestler at that age, that's awesome to hear for sure. Um, but another thing I wanted to talk about, kind of because I feel like this would also be a good podcast for people, just trying to get into getting more knowledge on wrestling. Everybody kind of sees like the glitz and glamours of like what's on TV, but I feel like like MCW and like these other smaller like independent promotions are pretty good as well. A lot of talent in there. So can you kind of talk about what it goes into being a pro wrestler and kind of a smaller promotion, not like a smaller promotion, but obviously like a more independent, more local promotion.
Yeah, I will say the business has transitioned from now, what it is now, to when I first got into wrestling.
Hmm.
And in my opinion, it for the better? It depends on what avenue that you're looking into.
Hmm.
And then it's just a matter of opinion. So me, I think that there's a lot of good, and I think that there's a lot of bad.
Mm.
The lot of good that I think is, I think everybody should be accepted into wrestling. If this is what you want to do, it doesn't matter if, what your ethnicity is, what your color is, what your sexual orientation is. I don't give a crap. Like, this is a beautiful art form. This is a beautiful industry to get into, and it's amazing. The amount of friends and family that I've now made because of it, the amount of wonderful, crazy things that I've gotten to experience because of wrestling. Yeah, if somebody wants to do this, then by all means, yeah, absolutely, shoot for it. With that being said, because we essentially let everybody in, there's been a lot less focus on who we let in as far as motivation, drive, seriousness. Because if you look at a lot of independent wrestlers, they're all out of shape.
That's funny you say that because like when I was showing like Ebenezer, my other friends, those clips, they're like, why are there some like they're just like regular people? And I mean like that's kind of a bad example, if you're trying to get people into wrestling because I mean obviously you're in pretty good shape and that's why you're the champion. You've worked hard for it, but like when you try to get people to kind of watch these smaller independent wrestlers and most of them have like dad bods or they're just like looks like regular people in trunks, it's kind of it's a turnoff for certain people for sure.
Yeah, I mean, because we're portraying professional wrestling. And when you put the term professional wrestling onto something, again, yeah, you don't want to look like somebody's neighbor. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to be in shape. Like, I'm not saying that everybody has to have a six-pack. I'm not saying everybody needs to be cut, because if we all looked the same, then what do you have?
Exactly.
There's no reason for it. I completely get, like the Dusty Rhodes figures and, curvy women. I completely get all that because they're representing, their demographic or people that, can relate to them in that aspect. So I completely understand that. And they have, everybody again has a place in wrestling, But again, you have to still be in shape.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody has ever watched, I believe it was the Kevin Owens documentary, he talks about how obviously, he's not, a six-pack guy.
Exactly.
But he talked about when he was coming for his tryout, he busted his ass to get prepared for it because he knew that he probably wasn't ready for it. And, I commend him for it. So even though somebody can look like that, or even Keith Lee, like Keith Lee's a big guy, but I guarantee he can go. I guarantee that he's not going to get blown up in the ring. So you can still look like the person that you would like to be, but at least you should be able to do what is required and what is asked of you in the ring. And that's where, again, people's drives and motivations are two completely different things. So that's why I've, and this is, again, just me, I guess being an old man, even though I'm really not that old, but I almost wish that there was, a level of like, this is professional wrestling and this is independent wrestling.
Yeah.
Because if you want to be a wrestler and you're like, I don't want to go to WWE, I don't want to go to AEW, New Japan, Ring of Honor, I don't want to go to any of these big places. You know what's good for me? What my goal is to just learn and then go wrestle in my hometown once a month or once every couple months. If that's your goal, bro, lady, by all means, go chase it, go kill it. But again, there's a different level of expectations that certain people hold themselves to. And I guess the equivalent that I would put it as is if, the old men that are broken down and still want to play softball, they play soft toss leagues on the weekends or, during the week with their buddies, and they want to drink and they just want to relax and have fun. By all means, go play. But then there's other people that are still like, hey, I wasn't good enough for AAA, but I still want to take this game very serious. I want to do this as best of my abilities. So then they go play fast pitch leagues, which are still around, So again, it's just, it all depends on how you look at wrestling. That's just the way that I look at it. I like that everybody's accepted, but at the same time, I don't like that we're all grouped together because there is a different mindset, and I take this very seriously. And, it's tough when you meet somebody that's just like, I'm just here to kind of hang out. I'm like, well, we're not on the same page. We're just on different pages. That's all. There's nothing wrong with it. We're just on different pages. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. And with that being said, do you feel like, with that determination and kind of, with you breaking it down on the different mind states, do you think that's what helped you propel, to where you are now of being a heavyweight champion?
Absolutely. Because, I'm such a competitive person. So when I see somebody, working as hard as me, then I'm like, okay, I guess I have to keep going. I have to do this. I have to do that, and at the same time, it's just people's drives to learn more about, either what we do or, how to like look better, how to get in better shape and everything like that. Again, the amount of people that reach out to me for just advice, and I'm very appreciative that people look at me for that type of guidance. But a lot of times the questions that they ask me, I'm like, Google is right there.
Yeah.
And like that to me is, again, something as far as like, I can Google that answer in a second. So like, why? I'm not saying that you're bugging me by any means, but again, like, what was stopping you from using Google?
Yeah, taking your own initiative.
The best thing about the technology now compared to before, when I was learning about all this stuff, is when YouTube was out, nobody wanted to go on YouTube and do free videos on how to build a better chest, how to build better arms, how to lose weight, because everyone was like, well, why are you giving all these secrets away? But now you can't make money. But there wasn't YouTube monetization before. So now people just give away everything. Like it's literally at your fingertips. Everything that you want to know about the world is at your fingertips. So there's literally no excuse why anybody can just reach out and be like, okay, here's all the information that I need. Let me go do it.
Yeah, for sure. So I remember watching a couple of your matches. The one that I wanted to talk about was the the one where you actually won the championship. It was you. It was triple threat, right? It was you. It was Brandon Scott, and I'm forgetting the other wrestler's name.
Red Titus.
Red Titus. So this is actually something I'm really interested in, talking about or getting more insight on, because not a lot of people, get to say that they've, been in some type of league. And I know wrestling's a little different because it's not like, obviously, it's entertainment. So, we get to kind of earn that spot. You still have to earn it, obviously, but when you got told, when you got the word that that would be your night, that you finally, take the mantle, how did that feel mentally going into that? Did you feel prepared to, kind of grab the baton? Did you, was it kind of nerve wracking to get in there and kind of, try to put on? Because it's, your performance getting the championship is, just important to getting a championship. If you kind of half ass your way to the belt, people definitely will look at you kind of weird.
Yeah, I'm never concerned about my performance ability. I feel that, I feel very confident that if I go out there, I'm confident in my abilities. Like things should go well. I mean, do they always go well? No, of course not. Like, things slip up, but overall, what I was more concerned about and leading up to that was, do the people care? Like, are the people behind me? And that's something that I was always focusing on as, in my tenure of MCW, because, when I first got there, I started making some noise, and that was nice. And then it kind of seemed like, okay, maybe I am making a little bit of noise here. So like, that's good. It seems like the people are getting behind me, but I don't know if they're just very easy, or they like everybody, or if it's me in particular. And then something that stood out to me that I've talked about before. So MCW always puts on these like polls or questions of like, who do you think is going to win? And the first time that I faced Dante for the MCW championship, I think I was blown out of the water. I think it was like 70% Dante, 30% me, or something like that. I forget what the exact percentage was, but like the people they didn't believe in me at that point. And we had that match. It was close, and then I had another string of matches after that. And then the next time that Dante and I were supposed to face, then all of a sudden it was leaning towards my way. Then a lot more people were voting for me. So that to me was like my recognition of like, all right, I guess people are starting to get behind me. And then something that was really cool for me that my wife actually captured, which I feel really bad, but like it was cool for me. So after I won the MCW championship, I had to go back and I had to do a couple interviews. I had to do photos with the belt and stuff like that. So like I was pretty busy, but like, she's like, there's a crowd of people waiting for you at your table.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, oh Christ. And then she took a video of the amount of people that were waiting for me. And I felt awful because I was like, I can't, like, I'm, we got to get all this stuff done. Like everybody's obviously, like I'm busy. But that was a cool moment for me because again, like leading up to that, it was all right. I'm starting to see the people behind me. And then that, especially like their reaction afterwards, like that's always great. But then like the mere fact that people waited, like they didn't just get in their car and go home. They waited for me. And like, that is an insane blessing. It's something that, it's hard to describe.
That is awesome. Yeah, no, that's something that only a couple people, in this world get to actually, experience, is that the people, behind you, and then finally that moment comes and they're just excited for you. And going along with that, as a title holder, now you're kind of the, when people get the title, it kind of means that the company's, 100% invested, they're kind of pushing you as their main guy most of the time, at least. So as, the heavyweight champion of MCW, do you carry yourself a little different than, before, or is it more like, it's just an accessory to what I already had going on?
The locker room is so strong. Like everybody together is so strong. Like we all understand that we all need each other, collectively. That's why, for those that don't know, the old school rule is, when a wrestler arrives to a building, you're supposed to shake everybody's hand, and it's to show, your respect to everybody, not only as an individual, but as, an intricate part of the event, because everybody from ring crew, referees, ring announcers, timekeepers, security, like we need everybody in order to do a show. So when I'm in a locker room, especially at MCW, like and I know how talented everybody is, how amazing everybody is, especially at like their stick. Like, no, I don't carry, I don't believe that I carry myself any different in the back. I mean, also, mind you, from the time that I won the title to the last show was like, I think we ran one more show and then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So me winning the title just shut down the wrestling world apparently. But, so no, like either way, like I absolutely love our locker room. I love everybody in it. And again, like I just know, like literally tomorrow, this guy could take my spot or this guy could take my spot because that's how good everybody is there. Something that, again, I was just more proud that I'm just going to hold inside is the mere fact that, you know, for a long time, Bruiser was the top guy and like the only good guy that they really had. They had some other pieces here and there, but it seemed like for a long time, it was just Bruiser and no one was really taking Bruiser from that top spot. Now, obviously, mind you, Bruiser had been on the shelf around this time. But you know, just like kind of getting that, that passing of the torch from him specifically, you know, and the things that he has said to me leading up to that was like, you know, holy crap. Like it's almost one of those moments of like, how the hell did I get here?
Yeah.
You know? So, but again, like it's just too many blessings that I've been given.
For sure. Yeah. And also, on speaking about MCW, how's the wrestling community and like just the pro wrestling world in like Maryland compared to like, have you been in like, I know you said you've been in other promotion before, but were they all kind of around the same area? Or were they kind of spread out a little bit around the East Coast?
So I've traveled up and down the East Coast. I've gone west and I've gone overseas to the UK. As far as Maryland, just MCW is like that's the spot. It's tough. It's kind of like saying like, you know, at the time when CZW was ruling, you know, the Philadelphia area, but it's like, well, yeah, CZW was ruling Philly, but like, you know, WXW was doing really well in Allentown. So it's always like, it's more or less the promotion, not necessarily like the state. Because there might be 100, like there's probably 100 promotions in North Carolina, but which ones are like top tier, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. So as, you know, a pro wrestler kind of, you know, on the independent circuit, I mean, right now you're with MCW. Is there kind of a part of that isn't really brought to light more? Because obviously, you know, like with independent wrestling being more popular, you know, with like more, it feels like now we're in a time era where it's not just, you know, like WWE's and kind of like the top tier. You have all these promotions coming up, like AEW's doing really well with a lot of, you know, independent wrestlers that, you know, kind of shot up and kind of got to that promotion made to where it was, with TNA doing well, you know, as well right now. Is there any part of like the independent circuit that like, or being an independent wrestler that like isn't brought to light as much as you think it should be? Any aspects of it that you think people should know about?
No, I think the curtain's pretty much open as far as how the business goes. You know, the glitz and the glam of an independent wrestler. I think everybody pretty much knows, you know, how it is now. So it's tough to kind of play that line, and you have to almost get more creative to have people go, well, I know how wrestling is like kind of coordinated. I know how it's kind of done, but like, this is really interesting. And I don't know if this is real or not.
Yeah.
So like, that's where you have to get, you know, creative with how you do things, which I'll tell you a funny story. So I was wrestling for a company, and this was around the time that Hurricane Katrina happened, and I was supposed to go to a wedding, and then Katrina happened. It got put off. It got rescheduled to like a month or two later or something like that. So the date ended up falling on a day that I had a show with the company. And you know, I told the promotion, even though I was an integral part and I had already, you know, said I would be there for the date. I was like, hey, you know, if you could just understand this, I'm in the wedding. I'm like, it's kind of hard for me. So I'm like, if I could just miss this one show, you know, I'd appreciate it. And they were kind of hesitant on it. But then they were trying to say, well, you know what we're going to do this last show or the month before, we're going to have somebody come out and beat you up, and we'll say that you have a rib injury or something like that, and that's why you're not at the next one. And I'm like, that's all fine and dandy, but I have like 3 other shows after yours.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, just don't post anything online. I'm like, that's not my choice. Like one, I should obviously advertise where I'm going to be. And I'm like, but on top of it, let's just say I don't make any posts saying where I'm going to be. I'm like, if a fan goes to the show that I'm already booked on and then they take a picture of me and post it, and then you're trying to say that I'm injured, like it's clearly 2 different things.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I get where you guys are coming from, but like this doesn't make sense. So they still went with the idea anyway, and then they wanted me to say like, oh, I re-injured it like after those bookings. I was like, whatever, fine. But again, so that's what I mean by like people have to get creative with, their ideas and like, how things are done in order to, just suspend your belief and kind of pull you in. That's the whole reason, people cry at movies. We all know the movie's fake. We all know that the dinosaur didn't really die. They just stopped drawing him. You know what I mean? But like, we're so invested into the story. We're like, oh man, like this got me, so that's our job.
Yeah. And that's actually funny that you brought that up, because I wanted to talk about that too. So I feel like obviously everybody knows with like social media being such a big thing nowadays, a big player in every, media, as in like, sports, everything, social media is such an important aspect. With wrestling, it kind of is a good thing because you can get more connected with the wrestlers, but it's a bad thing because I feel like right now it's the most like, I forgot who I heard talking about this, but people were really saying like people are more, invested what's happening behind the curtain than actually what's in the ring. So how do you feel about being, at your prime, like in this generation where it's just like people are more concerned about, like behind the screen stuff and like, I mean, maybe it's a little different with MCW, but like I still feel like people are, for like you said, like the faking and injury stuff, like I feel like people would be more, lenient on that back, kind of towards, the time where social media wasn't a big thing versus now.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the person, I guess, who you ask. For me, when people try to ask me stuff like that at shows, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I just kind of like, shrug it off and keep on going. Cause again, you're there for a reason. Like enjoy the show. Like forget about all that back stuff. There's a reason why there should be a guardrail at every show. You stay on that side of the guardrail, please.
Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, I know you've been the MCW champion for about a year now, right?
It depends on how you want to look
at
it.
So the pandemic, you've been the active champion, but this year hopefully you'll get more active as actual champion. But so after you achieve this goal, you're the MCW champion. What would you say your next big goal would be? What are you even looking past that? Are you just kind of enjoying your ride as the MCW champion? Do you even want to have that mind state where you're kind of looking past that, or do you kind of like this is where I'm at right now, I'm gonna do the best ability to remain the champion and stay active?
So what I always say is as corny as it sounds, I just go where the wind takes me. It's such a corny saying, and I almost hate using it, but it's literally how I live my life. Because my goal has always been WWE. My goal has always been to have, the WrestleMania moment, to travel and just wrestle. Like wrestling's all I've ever wanted to do. So WWE, and now that there's other avenues, whichever, as long as my bills are being paid, and I'm wrestling, like I'm happy. Of course, WWE has always been the goal. The reason that I say, I kind of just go where the wind takes me is because, for those that don't know, I actually just moved to Florida. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. My family is from Hawaii. So like it's, I'm not a gimmick, but, so I was born and raised in in Pennsylvania. And, in August of last year, my wife and I decided like, yeah, let's move to Florida. So we decided that in August, and then we were here in December, like a couple months later. But if you would have asked me in July, where do you see yourself at the end of the year,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have said Florida,
Mm.
because also on top of it, and the whole reason was, I was in Florida for for WWE.
Mhm.
And to make a long story short, I got to do some really cool things down here, and I realized I wouldn't have been able to experience those things if it wasn't for the fact that I was here.
Mhm. Mhm.
If I'm here all the time, there's more opportunities for me to experience more opportunities. Whereas if I was in Pennsylvania, I wouldn't have been able to get that.
Mhm.
So literally, like, on my flight back from Florida, I was on the phone with my wife right before I took off, and she's like, "So when do we move?" And I'm like, I don't know, because we owned a house, so it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
I
Damn.
was like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm pretty sure we're going to move. I'm not 100% certain. I'm like, I just have to think about it a little more. 2 hours later, when I landed and my wife picked me up, I was like, all right, we're moving. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was
Yeah.
done by that point. I was in that 2 hours on the plane, like, literally talking to myself, like, what are you waiting for? I don't know. Then go. Okay. Like, that was the conversation. Like, it didn't take me long. But again, so when you're asking, like, what's the next goal, what are some things that you'd like to do? Man, there's a lot of things that I would love to do.
Mhm.
It depends on if life takes me that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, definitely. Right now, I feel like as a pro wrestler, like obviously I'm not in your boots, but I feel like right now is kind of the most inspiring time to be a wrestler because it's like it just there's so many options now with everything kind of being a spotlight. Like maybe a couple years ago, I don't know, maybe this is my opinion. I've always felt like for the longest time, maybe in like the early 2000, you could say like early 2000 WCW, maybe kind of early. You have TNA as well. But for the last couple of years, like I feel like it's really just been WWE dominated. And right now, it's like it's funny that I'm getting back into it now because you have all these like superstars that probably wouldn't get the shine that they would deserve if AEW didn't form, and now that AEW and TNA are kind of doing their own little joint thing. So that kind of goes to my next question. So I've been a wrestling fan for a while. I'm kind of back into it. I'm sure you've been following ever since you were younger to now. How do you feel about the current day product of WWE or versus AEW? Do you think there's one that's kind of doing a little bit better, or do you think everything's kind of like a level playing field? And it's just obviously this isn't going to be the same as this, but it's kind of on the same spectrum of entertainment.
So I feel like I'm more biased because I know the things behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot more appreciation for certain things that an average person wouldn't notice.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, to give you an instance, oh man, I can't think of the movie off the top of my head. Man, I think it's called like 1912 or something. It's some war movie that came out like a year or two ago, and then it was on Netflix for a bit, or maybe I saw it on Amazon. It doesn't matter. I'm kind of rambling too much, and I apologize. But so I've done a lot of video editing, film work, those types of things. And when I'm watching this film, there's a scene where these two guys are walking from where they are to like where they need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And you're watching it, and I'm kind of sitting there and I'm like, this seems like all one shot. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
haven't cut the camera. How the heck did they do this long shot? Like, how many takes did they have to do for this one long shot? So I'm so focused on these other things, like the production end of it. Yeah, I'm still invested into the story, but I'm like, how the hell are they doing this right now? You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
then like the shot continues, Now I'm Googling, I'm like, was this all one shot? Like, I'm more focused on these other things. So I look at wrestling the same way, where they're looking at a match and they're like, oh man, that match was crappy. And I'm like, but did you see the camera work for this? Did
Yeah.
you see how they did this, or how, this or that? Did you understand the promo? Like the timing, like, oh, there's so many other avenues
Yeah.
that fans just don't know about,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm looking at it from a completely different window. So they might watch something and be like, that was a piece of crap. And I watch it and I'm like, yeah, you have no idea. And that's fine. Like, that's why you're on that side and I'm on this side. So as far as like the product now, it's tough to say. Do I think that the product is good or bad? Again, like, I like this and I like that.
Mm-hmm.
it really all depends on what you're particularly looking at. And then again, like, what's your I always we always use the phrase, what's your flavor of ice cream? Because
Mm-hmm.
like for me, and this is just my opinion, I'm not a huge fan of like lucha libre style of
Yeah.
wrestling where
Uh-huh.
it's a lot of like running and this and that and then that. Like it's great to watch, it's entertaining, but for me, when I want to go in the ring, like that's not my style.
Mm.
Will I work with somebody like that? Oh yeah, of course. Like, I would love to. But when I want to flip on the screen, that's not the first like promotion that I want to watch. That's not the first thing that I want to pop in there. Like I like horror movies, but I'd rather watch a comedy. So again, it's a matter of like, what do you like particularly? And as long as the fans are still coming, then to me, they're doing fine. How many times have you heard fans go like, "Oh, WWE is terrible"?
Yeah.
Well, they're still selling out every freaking arena, and WrestleMania is still killing every number record, all the time. So keep saying it. Go ahead.
Do you think see, because I feel like I kind of I don't know, my favorite, like, I like to watch WWE, but I always have that like little like gripe in my heart where I'm just like, and I say obviously because I'm like a fan perspective, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm just like, man, like I feel like just the level of like people that are kind of into their character and the originality, like at least for the WWE, that's why I think AEW is so successful, because you have people like Orange Cassidy and like Luchasaurus and like all these other wrestlers that have like such a I wouldn't say like the most super original gimmick. I feel like they're more unique to themselves. Where like I feel nowadays it's just like for WWE it's just like what dude with long hair and a beard, like super muscular is gonna win the championship next. I don't know if that's just like a weird way to look at it, but like you look back where it's just like you had people like if we're talking about like the ruthless aggression era, you had people like Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle was a bald guy, JBL was like a flabby dad bod type of guy, and he had the strap. You go further than that, you have like Biker Taker, Mankind, Triple H. Like I don't know, like I feel like that's like it's gotten less original. Is that like a weird idea? Do you disagree with that, or do you think it's kind of a nostalgic thing?
No, I don't. I don't necessarily disagree with it. I understand where you're coming from.
Hmm.
I think it's also hard when how long has wrestling been around, and then how original of an idea can you come up with?
Yeah.
That's always the difficult part.
And I think too, like, not to cut you off, but I think too that's why like there's such an appreciation for people like Bray Wyatt, where he can kind of like bring these characters in. Obviously, like it's in the same kind of creepy vein. Like obviously, there's wrestlers in the same lane, but like how he can continue to reinvent his character to where now he's the Fiend. And in my personal opinion, that's my favorite active WWE superstar is the Fiend, just because of how original his gimmick is. How he doesn't look like the archetype wrestler. But yeah, that's just throwing that in there. But you can continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, and you're right. Based off of your question, again, you're asking, well, it seems like there's a lot of, either bland or repetitious, characters
Hmm.
that you see a lot. Well, yeah, it's tough. And again, going back to, what I was saying was, how many how many original characters can you come up with? And that's the problem,
Hmm.
when it's like, it's like anything. How many different ways can you do this or that? Like
Mm.
cooking, baking. How many different ways can you cook this one dish? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it gets tough after a while. I mean, even myself. I was Keikoa the Flying Hawaiian for hell like 9 years or something like that.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until somebody pulled me aside and was like, I feel like if this is the glass ceiling, Keikoa the Flying Hawaiian can only get here. So you need
Mm.
something else. And then it was challenging to figure it out, but it again, like that was on year 10, 11 or something like that of my career, where I finally switched and I did something else. So I talked to a lot of these younger guys that are getting in, and I'm like, hey, you just have to find out who the hell you are. It might take a while. It took me a while. So it is what it is.
Have you
It's
ever
tough.
have you ever gone through a different gimmick, like other than the Flying Hawaiian, and then right now you're the Hawaiian Warrior? Have you tried other gimmicks, maybe at like certain house shows or anything like that, or have you just pretty much been stable throughout your 10 years?
So I was Keikoa the Flying Hawaiian for like 8 or 9 years,
Mhm.
and then I tore my ACL.
Mm.
While I was injured, my idea was, okay, well, I'm just going to come back as a completely different person.
Mm.
And that, because around that time, that was when somebody had told me, like, I think Kekoa, the Flying Hawaiian, is only going to get you so far. So then while I was off, I had come up with this character, because the original King of Hawaii, and this is, true history. The original King of Hawaii was King Kamehameha. And King Kamehameha he's a god in Hawaii. He's the one that actually united the Hawaiian Islands.
Mm.
So he's got his own statue. He's got colleges named after him. Like, he's a god. He's a god in Hawaii. But then as I was reading on him, I read this one story about how King Kamehameha, right before a battle, he took his kids up to the top of a volcano, and he threw his kids into the volcano and sacrificed them to the gods above in order to give him, strength, endurance, and everything that he needed in order to win the war the next day. And I'm like, that's heel shit. Like, that's bad
Yeah.
guy 101. You just killed your own children to win a war? Like, what? Like, what? So I was like, it's easy to translate to wrestling then. He's sacrificing his own blood to win, so if I sacrificed my own blood in order to win, a championship at a company, it's an easy segue. So then I based my character off of the bloodline of King Kamehameha, and I called myself the Warrior King, King Kekoa. And then, I started doing that. I had my big helmet made. I got this robe made. And then I literally went to my backyard. I broke off a branch and I shaved it down into a spear. Like, I did all of it.
That's awesome.
And then, I want to say not even a year in, too many companies were like, yeah, we really need you to be a good guy. And I'm like, but I'm a bad guy now. Like, I was a good guy for a long time, but they're like, yeah, but we really need you to be a good guy. Like, we have too many bad guys, which again is a whole, it's a whole other problem.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to be a very good babyface, hard to be a very good guy.
Yeah.
And the way that I always like to kind of compare it for people to understand that are maybe not as involved in the wrestling world. I'm talking to you, Ebenezer. So imagine going to a party and nobody knows who you are. How hard is it to get the whole party to like you, and how easy is it to get the whole party to be like, who the hell is that?
Yeah.
Like, and they hate you. You could literally like sneeze the wrong way and people are like, what an idiot. Like, like, people can hate you like that. So that's why, like, it is so difficult to be a very good guy and have generally everybody like you. And I think I might have that figured out on how to be a good guy in the world of professional wrestling. I hope I do. I'd like to learn more, obviously, but that's why, like, I had to come out of the King character. But I'm like, but I don't want to be the Flying Hawaiian anymore, because that wasn't working and only got me so far. So then I transitioned into the Hawaiian Warrior, because also I'm like, well, I paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars for this custom made, hand painted, war helmet.
Yeah.
And now it's just sitting there because I'm a good guy again. And a lot of people were like, don't put the helmet on as a good guy because it's covering your face and, you're not a bad looking guy. And I'm like, but I have this couple $100 helmet just sitting here. I'm like, it's going to waste. I'm like, no, I'm putting it on. I'm like, give me that damn robe too. I'm like, I'm changing everything. So then that's how the Hawaiian Warrior came around, which Kekoa means courageous warrior in Hawaiian anyway. So I'm like, the gimmick's right there. Like, why haven't I been doing this all along?
Yeah. So just to kind of bring an old top that we were just talking about. So when hopefully you do get your, WWE run, you're going to try to do a heel run, or you prefer to do a heel run versus a baby face, or would you just kind of be cool with doing either or?
I'm going to do whatever Vince tells me to do.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. That's what's up.
That's literally going to, your job at, Applebee's or, wherever the hell you work, and going like, all right, we're doing things my way now. And they're like, you're fired.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's not how it works. Whatever you need, I'm here. I'm here to work.
Gotcha. So, kind of looking to the future. There's obviously so many like talented wrestlers right now. Like I said, it's really at a good point right now. Who are some people that you haven't wrestled? in other promotions and other companies that would be a dream match for you? What would be a couple people that you really think that you could put on a 5-star performance with?
On the independent circuit?
Either or. You could kind of, throw them both. I mean, if there's like a big difference for either or, we can do independent. But just kind of in general, who are some people that you feel like you do some good work with?
The independence is tough because if they're good, they're probably gone by now.
Mm.
And how does that say about me? Like there's definitely people, around that are hovering that are very good, that they just haven't broken that the glass ceiling yet. So I know that they're going to be gone soon, but it's also hard for me to think about who's on the circuit right now that I'm like, oh yeah, like that guy. Like I would, I love a match with him. I mean, just for example, you can't even call this guy an independent guy, even though he kind of is. Will Ospreay would be, like a fantastic match. But again, like I don't even consider him as an independent wrestler. Like he's with New Japan.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love to work with, Randy Orton. I would absolutely love to work with Seth Rollins. I would love to work with Chris Jericho. Like it's crazy. Like it's crazy to me. Like, okay, so here's like what's absolutely insane. So before AEW got started, I was in New Jersey in I had a match that night as well, but I was in a random battle Royal Rumble or something, and there's me and my buddy Sonny Kiss, like just beating each other up for the hell of it, and I'm just messing with him the entire time, right? You fast forward not even a year later, and he's in the ring with Chris Jericho.
Yeah,
it's so crazy to be like, I was just on a show with you. You're facing one of the greatest of all time. So now it's tough for me to be like, well, yeah, of course I would love to face Chris Jericho, but like, what are the odds of that happening? And then but look at Sonny Kiss. Like that's what's crazy about wrestling too. It's crazy to even like throw these types of things out into the universe. But yeah, of course I would love to wrestle. There's a list too long. I would love to work all of these greats. But number one right now would be Randy Orton.
That's
by far.
Yeah.
By far. But that's such a pipe dream to even think about.
Yeah, no, that is wild. No, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's why I feel like right now is such like an awesome time to be a pro wrestler, especially for people who are trying to make it big. It's because like just like you said right there, Sonny Kiss is working the one show, and then a year later is wrestling Chris Jericho, which is super inspiring. That's awesome. Like that's mind blowing right there.
I messaged him when I saw the advertisement for it, and I'm like, how? Like what? What?
Yeah.
What? Crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's actually just wild. Just thinking about that. But yeah, I don't want to keep you for too long. We definitely got some good topics in, and I also want people not to get bored of hearing us talk back and forth. So, is there any final comments? Any last thing you want to say? Because hopefully, like I said, my goal when I reach out to people is we're based in Baltimore. So just having people coming in that are from like Maryland / Baltimore based promotions or companies, it's always awesome. So I hope more people. We kind of have a younger following, so hopefully more people get invested in you and your persona as well as MCW. They take a look into that. So is there any final comments you have about either MCW or wrestling or anything along the lines of that?
Yeah, two things. One would be, since you're saying that you are based in the Baltimore area, so for anybody that's in the Maryland area and within a 2-3 hour radius of the Baltimore area, if you are a fan of professional wrestling and you haven't come to an MCW show yet, you're absolutely missing out. Something that I always tell people, even though they're like, oh yeah, I used to be a wrestling fan, but I kind of fell out of it. Like going to a live event and watching it on TV are two completely different things.
Yeah.
And I can't stress that enough. I absolutely cannot. It's kind of like, it's kind of like when you want to go to like a movie that you've really been waiting for it to come out and you can't wait to see it. The amount of excitement that you get when it's the opening night and you actually go to a movie to go see it rather than you just wait until it comes out on Redbox or Netflix, they're not the same. So again, like if you're a fan of wrestling and you've never gone to a live event, especially an MCW show, absolutely come out, because we have an enormous amount of talent that could literally be gone the next day,
Yeah.
from top to bottom. There's just too much talent on a roster. And then this next thing that I always say, and especially at the end of every podcast that I say, I'm very, 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 very big believer, and especially in my life experience, that I know that tomorrow is absolutely never promised.
Hmm.
So I can't stress this enough, to say to everybody, if you've ever, bought a ticket, bought a t-shirt, even Googled me, something along the lines of me in the realm of professional wrestling, followed me on social media, can't thank you enough for your support. And I can't thank you enough for even standing behind me, literally anything. The mere fact that I still get to do this, and I still want to do this after a very, very long time of doing it, is a great reflection. It's a great example of the mere fact that I absolutely love and appreciate everybody that comes to a show. So thank you, for all of that, and thank you for having me on, and giving me the platform. I very much appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. This is definitely an awesome episode. So thanks guys for everybody watching. We'll be back in another 2 weeks for the next episode, episode 16. So thank you guys, and Godspeed. God bless. Thank you.